Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webcast, Inventor HSM and Autodesk Vault Design Changes and Program Documentation Control. Our presenter today is Matthew Nichols. He is a solutions engineer with Hagerman and Company. Before we get started, I want to let you know that you're in listening only mode. If you have questions during the presentation, just type them into the question panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and Matt will address them at the end of the webcast. As you exit the webcast today, you'll be prompted to fill out a survey, and we ask that you take a few moments to fill that out for us. And with that, I'll hand things over to Matt.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. Welcome to our webinar today. So today we're going to cover HSM and the integration with Vault, basically covering design changes and documentation through Vault. So we all know Autodesk integrated CAM and the abilities that you have within it. And so, one of the things we look at, why integrated CAM? You have a 16-step process with standalone CAM where you're importing CAD data from an external program and then creating toolpaths, and if any update on the CAD data changes, then you then have to re-import, redo all the toolpaths and so forth. And so by doing the integrated CAM, we can take that 16-step process down to a 9-step process. But why Autodesk Vault? So one of the things with Vault is it's a great document management program where in Vault you have the ability to control a document in the way the revisions are handled. You can also see comments or see exactly what changes were done in each version. You can also control who sees it, and that's one of the things we're going to look at is, you don't want your machinist to have access to all the files. You only want them to have access to the file when they need it, basically, for like an NC file or setup sheets. So what we're going to look at later on is through the thin client of Autodesk Vault, how we're able to control that. And then you can also handle engineering change orders through Vault as well to further document what's going on in the design process. You have rules-based lifecycle definition where whenever you check in from Inventor or even Microsoft Office programs like Excel, where you create spreadsheets or the setup sheets, you can have rules that at your check-in it'll automatically put it into certain lifecycle definitions so that they're handled differently through the course of the documents lifecycle. One of the other things that is beneficial if you try to do any kind of automation potentially is the ability to control iProperties through definition of properties inside the Vault. So you can dynamically, you can link iProperties to user-defined properties in Vault that will intermingle. So if you're to change it in the Vault and you get latest on the part, it would automatically update with those new values and so forth. If you changed them in the part, it would then link in and change it inside of Vault. One of the other things that this works with is if you do any kind of iLogic routine. We know that through Vault you can't do a copy design on a part that has iLogic and it follows through. But if you create external iLogic rule triggers, which we'll look at in a little bit, those will follow through with the part. So that if you have that external rule linked to your Inventor, it will run it whenever that trigger is placed. So with that, let's go ahead and go into Inventor. And we've all probably seen this part. If you've seen any of my demos, it's kind of a basic part, but I'm just going to kind of use it to show some of the Vault integration. So basically what we're looking at is, this would be a part that would be bolted. I've got threaded holes, so other plates could be bolted to it, and then I've got a little engraving for the actual part number. And so basically what I want to do is I want to be able to have control of the center distance from center to center, the overall OD of my part at this point, and then the depths of these pockets, and the quantity of the holes. Okay. So originally what I would do is I would hook this up to an iLogic rule inside of this part and just run with it. So anytime I had to do a part, I can make the changes, save it out, and be good to go. But what I want to do is I want to start doing that through my vault. So what I've done here is in the iProperties under custom, I've created the certain properties that I want to be able to control through my external rule that I've got. So I've got those, and then through this copy design rule that's external, I've got these rules that link my iProperties to either custom parameters, user parameters, or just model parameters, actual values. So I've got that, and then whenever I talked about creating rule triggers, with that external rule being set up, I can then set it up that at the open of the document, it runs that copy design rule that's external. If I wanted to, I could also do select this so that even whenever I open it, it does the updates. If I go in and change it at any point in time while I'm in the part, then now with this any model parameter change, it'll automatically run that rule as well. So then we'll know that it updates every time that something changes. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go into my Vault tab, and I'm just going to go ahead and check in this part, and we'll look at more of the Vault stuff as we go in. And one other thing I'll show over here once this gets done, checking in, is that I've also got all the toolpaths associated to the file as well. All the toolpaths to be able to actually cut this part are included inside of this file. There it is. All right, so we'll check it in. And let's go over here. So here's all the toolpaths. And since I ran that rule, I need to regenerate them. Okay. Anyways. So if I go into my Vault, now you see 198.764, the part that I had open, is now checked in. So let's start by looking at this. So with life cycles, what I can do is I can set up the different life cycles for processes or the document types that I want to control, basically. So this one that I typically run is my standard release process or life cycle for engineering files. So any parts, assemblies, drawings, and so forth go through this life cycle. Any of the actual programming files, so NC files, setup sheets, quotes, if I wanted to run them, would go through this NC file processing. And then, so you notice I've only got 4 steps here, and then I've got a few more steps here. Now, one thing that I mentioned earlier is basically security of the documents, or limiting what a user can see file-wise and at what state. So with this NC file processing, what I've done is I wanted to make it to where if any of these users, the administrator, engineer, are logged in, they can see all the files no matter what. But what I wanted to do is, at the work progress for review and the ECO level, I want to deny the consumer and the machinist any ability to review it, okay? Because I don't want them to be able to pull it whenever it's being worked on. Okay. So with lifecycle set up, now I can come in and I want to create some categories, okay? So what we had talked about, rule-based, like definitions for life cycles. So what I come in here and I create these categories, like base, engineering, office, and standard. These are all typical ones that are already in there. The ones I've created was NC files and setup sheets. So if you look at these other ones, the behaviors on them, you can define which life cycle process it goes to that category itself. And you'll notice up here too, you can define which category you're looking at. So mine's just strictly under file. So if I go to NC files, I've got my NC file processing defined as my default lifecycle definition. So once we've got the categories, I can come into rules. Now, these rules apply whenever you create an object inside of Vault. So basically, whenever you check a file in, these rules will then be run and will put the files, depending on how you set up the rules, into their proper lifecycle definition. So you can see with this NC files, what I've done is I've made it to where any file that comes in, if the file extension contains NC, it'll automatically put it into this NC file category, which then will run off the NC file processing lifecycle. Same with my setup sheet. Okay. So if I was to come in here, we'll look at this a little bit more later once I actually check some stuff in. So the next thing I kind of want to look at is being able to create user-defined properties that link to your iProperties within a part. So some of them you can kind of already see over here. I've got the center distance, and I've got my pocket depth already defined. But I want to go in, and we're going to go ahead and create a couple more to be able to do this. So if I come into Administration, Global Settings, oops, wrong one actually. Apologize. Actually, Vault Settings. Go to Behaviors, and I go to Properties. So here's all the properties that populate this panel. So if I go in here and I create new, let's say I'm going to create one that's going to control the outer diameter. So I'm going to literally just call it outer diameter. I'm going to leave it as text because that's what my iProperties type is. It's text property. And then I'm going to define just file for how it's associating. So if I go to mapping, I'm going to change my provider to Inventor file, and then I'm going to import from a Vault file. Okay, so then once I get this, I get all the properties inside of that part. So I'm doing outer diameter. So let's go to O's. Pick my outer diameter. That's a custom property. And hit OK. Now, whenever I do this, then it fills in the type. So it's type, text type, custom, and then mapping determines how it's going to actually synchronize between the part and the vault. So here I'm telling you that it's going back and forth. But if I wanted to, I could tell it either goes from part to vault or vault to part. But I'm going to go ahead and sync on both ways. And then this create, if you were checking in a file that didn't have this iProperty, if you turned create to yes, then it would automatically create that property inside of it. But we're going to leave it on no because I already know it's going to have it there. Okay. So let's go ahead and do just a couple more. Outer diameter, I'm going to do dimension radius. Mapping. Go down to I, pick my indentation radius property, hit OK, and then hit OK. Okay, so we've got those two made now. That'll follow along with the other ones that's already in there. So what I want to do is, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a copy design so we can see the external rule and the iProperties working, and then once we do that, we'll post files and look at the interaction between the vault and those post files. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on this, and I'm going to do copy design. So basically what I want to do is I'm going to put this over here, and I'm going to get rid of this prefix, and I'm going to change the base name. So the base name, I'm just going to take it from 64, and I'm just going to be like, let's just go ahead and do 65. So just changing one number. Go ahead and do my copy design on it. Okay. So now we've got the 198.765 in our folder, or in our vault. And then what I want to do is I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to go in and change a couple of these properties. Now you'll notice I've got center distance and pocket depth already in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit those properties, and I'm going to select some of these other ones that I've made to also be included in it. So we've got bolts here, so that's going to be the quantity of my bolt holes. Go down to the eyes, get indentation radius. Oh, the outer diameter. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a part with 5 bolt holes. I'm going to make my center distance 3.5, pocket depth 0.4. The indentation radius, so if we look back at this part, this is referring to this cutout. So I'm going to make that 5.5. And then my outer radius, I'm just going to do at 2 inches. Hit OK. All good to go. It's all updated. All right. So now I've made a copy design. I'm going to go ahead and say check out. I'm going to go out here. I'm going to close this part down. I'm going to open up this there we go. All right. So now we got 765. Open it up. let it run its rule, geometry changes, and then if I look at the back of the part, now my text is updated to the latest part number, which I need to move it. So then all I need to do here is I'm going to pick both my setups and regenerate all the toolpaths. So now we've created a new part. We've been able to keep the toolpaths inside that part and just it be able to regenerate toolpaths based on new geometry changes. And then if I even look at this engraving, even though it's kind of off, so let me fix that real quick. Sketch. Over a little bit. Cool. Now I can go back over here. Repick all of them, regenerate, and now you can see, even with the text change, it still keeps all the geometry selection from the previous part, and it even updates it to the new part number itself. So that's a quick and easy way that we can keep all that information the same and be able to do copy design as well. So now let's post out code and see the interaction in the Vault with NC files and setup sheets. So first I'm just going to pick this initial setup and I'm going to do post-process. And the way I've got this set up, since one of the great things whenever you go through the post process, you know, if you have typical posts that you're using, these output folders are sticky to those post files. So with this one, I've actually got it default to NC file folder inside of my Vault location. And then if I go to my setup, so I'm going to come up here, pick my setup, CPS. This one's set up to a setup sheets folder. So, you know, if you have certain locations that you're wanting to post files at, those output folders are sticky to those posts that you're using. So, if you want them to be in a certain location, that's how you can go about doing that. Anyways, so back to our post. All right. Change my program. We're going to do 1001. Hit post. All right. So we got our folder or our file. Now, you know, we can do all of our verification in here through backplotting. Okay. So looks good. I can do simulation through it if I wanted to, but I'm not going to right now. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Now if I come into my NC files folder, I now have this 1001. Okay. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to check this in here. One of the things I love, being able to just drag and drop. All right, so we got 1001 in there, work in progress. Now I'm going to come back into Inventor, doing the same setup. I'm going to go through the post-process routine for my setup sheet. Keep the same program number or program name. Oh. Yeah, I can't because I've already got one in there. All right, 1002. There it goes. All right. So with my setup sheet, I've got it customized where I have an interactive interface, so I can put in just basic comments. So my work coordinate is center of stock, as we can see. I'm going to leave 0 offsets on those. Then I'm going to say top of stock is where my Z is positioned at. Hit OK. Let it do its thing. Okay. All right, so then this one I've got 2 different sheets that come up. So I've got my picture, the information that I put into that user interface comes into here, and then I've just got my generic tool information and some of the basic information of my stock and the setup itself. Okay, so now if I wanted to, I can go in through here. Let's just go ahead and log in through here and do this. So with that logged in, I can then check in this file straight from here. It's okay. And I'll go back to my vault, setup sheets. Now I've got my 1002 in here. Okay, so we've got those files in. Now, let's say, if you're the machinist and you knew these parts were, or these programs were coming, we could go into a thin client, depending on how your workstations would be set up for them. You can have a thin client or an actual Vault Explorer for them, but we're going to look at it through a thin client. So I've got my username, server, the vault. I'm just going to go ahead and log in. All right, so just to show what we've done, if I come into my Vault folder, we've already got those two files, the NC file and the setup sheet checked in. Now if I go into my NC files, you notice I've got this 1003B NC file that's visible, but the one I just checked in was 1001. So with that, we know that the machinist, as it is not able to see that current file as of yet to be able to run it, because we're still making sure that it's good to go. Same with, if I go back here in my setup sheets, I have nothing that's visible. So what I want to do is, if I right click on here and I just change state, I'm now going to change this 1001 from work in progress to released. Okay. Then I'm going to add comment release for manufacturing. Okay. So we released it. I come back out here to my thin client, hit refresh, go to the right folder, and now I can see the 1001 NC file. So now from this point, as a machinist, I can either do an action and say download file, and that's how you would do it if you had this type of workstation up. Otherwise, you could just do a get latest or whatever at the machinist workstation, and then you could then load that file up to the machine itself. And so we can go in to our setup sheets and do kind of the same deal. We'll go to 1002. Change state, and then we'll go to released. Go back out to our setups, and now we have the 1002 available. This also gives you some of the other information about the file itself. You'll also get history. So we've got that going. So kind of the way that we can look at that is, as we looked at it earlier, through our Vault settings, and behaviors, and life cycles. Go into here and edit. So what we did on these securities, again, we changed for the work in progress, for review, and the ECO level at the machinist. All of them are undenied so that he is not able to see those. The only time he's able to see it is at the release level. And then the only thing that I have there is for him to be able to read it. But now, if you're at the administrator or engineer level, you have access to it at any point in time. The other thing that allows this too, let's go back into here, and I'm going to log out of this real quick. So if I go back into the administration, log in through here. So if I go into here in the settings, the other way that we are able to allow this to happen to where they're only able to see what's been released is this one. This little checkbox on their files is released files versions. So this also makes it to where the only documents that that user level at the machinist level is able to see the release files is by checking that box. Okay. Back in here. So with this being the read-only, or only being able to read it, the machinist isn't able to modify at all the file inside of the Vault. Even if he downloads it, he's not going to be able to check it back in. So it's literally just a read-only file for him. So that kind of ensures control over what they're able to do with the Vault by just giving him access to what's released. Now, as I said before, if you do revisions, you'll have revisions histories, and that'll be the same with these Excel files. But with these NC files, you don't necessarily have release. So, you know, what if you came in, revisions. So if you came in, if I go back into my Inventor, and let's say I came back and I had to change this to only have 4 holes. And then let's say the center distance went from 3.5 to 3.25. Okay. Rule. All right. So now we've got the geometry changed. Again, I have to come in, update this. So what I'll do is I'll select the first setup. Go ahead and post-process again. Back to my Haas post. Make sure it's in the right folder, which it is. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this as 1001 and post out. I'm just going to put ref B. Okay, so that A or B doesn't fall along into the actual program itself. It's just in the actual file name. So then if I close this, again, I'll go through the same process, except what I'm going to do with this, since I've already got this at release level, I'm going to change state to, basically I'm going to change it to ECO, and then I'm going to say change geometry, new file name with B at end. So hit OK on that. So that's going to stay at the ECO level. And then what I'm going to do is come back in here, and I'm just going to drag and drop this 1001B in here. And once I know this is good, I can then release this out to the shop for manufacturing. So, this is one route that you can do the revisions for the NC files. Just because you don't have the actual check-in revision history like you would through Inventor or through the other Microsoft Office document or program. So, like I said, this is one example of how you can do this. So if I go in, I can then change state, released, revised program, released for manufacturing. Okay. Now if I go back to my thin client, I now have 1001B, and 1001 is not able to be viewed anymore. So, like I said, this is one route that you can take to be able to control revision documentation. especially the visibility of your programs and your setup sheets to your actual machinists that are going to be using them. That way, by doing this, you know that the latest and greatest is on the floor and they're not cutting from previous files that could end up either causing collisions and wrecking machines or what have you. So this is just kind of a quick and dirty way of being able to do some of that. Let's see. All right. So let's see. I guess that's basically what I was wanting to show. I guess now is going to be a good time for doing a question and answering session. Any questions? So one question that's come up, can you still retrieve implement legacy files? Are you talking about legacy files as in legacy Inventor files or just in general, older versions? Yeah, so you would still be able to retrieve and implement them. Earlier revisions released back to production, as far as I know, yes, you do have the ability to release previous versions or revisions. Let's go back to this, go back to my parts. So, like, if I go back to this one, you would have the ability to like get the latest on this version, and then you could open up that and save it and check it in as a new version, basically, or a new revision. Cool. This will take a few more minutes. If you have any more questions, go ahead and post them, and be happy to answer them.
Okay, well, we haven't had any more questions, but if you think of questions at a later time, you can simply reply back to that email that you received originally from GoToWebinar, and we can get those to Matt. Once again, if you could take a few moments to fill out that short survey, we would appreciate it. It'll appear immediately as you close down the session. And otherwise, thank you for attending today's webcast and have a great day. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.